Parshas Chukas, Tov Shin, Pei Hey, and we roll along in the year. We're just about maybe 10 days before Shavasa B'Tammuz. We have a very special crowd here tonight, guests from out of town, all the way from Los Angeles. We're becoming world famous over here. It's like this, right? Eli Stefanski's stopping there at Yisrael, and this is the one in America, right? Wow. So, the beginning of our parsha speaks about, as we know, the parsha speaks about Parah Aduma. Now, one thing we're not going to do here tonight is give the reasons for Parah Aduma, because we know it's a chay. But the Nesivos Shalom speaks at length about the different aspects and the different parts of the Parah Aduma. And the Nesivos Shalom points out something very interesting about the very first psukim in the parsha. The Torah starts off, "Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe el Haron." Hashem spoke to Moshe and Aaron, Lamor, saying, the next pasuk now, "Zois chukas haTorah asher tzivah Hashem Lamor." If you notice, the end of both psukim, the end of both sentences, ends off with the word Lamor. It's everything in the Torah, every word in the Torah is accounted for. Every word in the Torah is there for a reason. And it's not only is it there for a reason, but it's there to teach us something, there to teach us a lesson. So the Nesivos Shalom asked the question, why do we have the word of Lamor twice? Why does it need to be there twice? And the answer, says in the Nesivos Shalom, is to deliver a very, very special message for us. And it's a lesson that's mentioned throughout the Nesivos Shalom many times, but here he actually proves it from the Torah. And the Nesivos Shalom tells us that Hashem is talking to us at two very different times. By these two times of saying Lamor in the psukim, Hashem is talking to us at two different times. The first time, the first Lamor in the pasuk is for the times when we had the Beis Hamikdash and we had the Parah Aduma. So when we had a Parah Aduma, the Torah is telling us, Lamor, this is what you have to do. This is how you bring the Parah Aduma. But it says in Nesivos Shalom, you might think that none of this would apply today. None of this would apply nowadays, when unfortunately, and we're going to speak about it over the next few weeks, when we get to the 3 weeks and Mashiach hasn't come yet, once again, we're going to face the Bein HaMitzarim. We're going to have to understand that we do not have a Beis HaMikdash, and it's no one's fault besides our own. Nesivos Shalom, Chafetz Chaim, many of tzaddikim of the past generation speak very much at length about this, about how it's people blame that, 2,000 years ago they did things wrong, and if we would have been, if the Beis HaMikdash is not built during our times, and it's our fault. It means we're not fixing what we need to fix. But when the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, we would think that all the halachas of Parah Aduma, we know there's nobody going up on Har HaZeisim, we're not doing the actual physical part of the Parah Aduma. So how would that apply to us today? What could that teach us for today? You might think that nowadays nothing. Not at all. Comes the second Lamor in the pasuk, and it tells us that Hashem is talking to us that this subject of Tahara Ruchnius, for a person to be Matayr, their Midos, to be Matayr Yeruchnius, to have a different learning of Torah, that's still here. The concept of Parah Aduma, physically, we cannot do the Parah Aduma. But the concept of Parah Aduma is still here today, and it applies to every one of us, and it's something that we need to work on today too, and not just the idea of the Parah Aduma. Nesivos Shalom says something so interesting, and he says that the Kriya of this parsha, when we read Parshas Chukas, when we read the parsha of the week this week, that parsha is mitaher us just as the Efer Parah was Matayr us. It applies today, and the reading of the Parsha is Matayr us. And he brings a raya from the fact that the Torah says, Zois Chukas HaTorah. It doesn't say Zois Chukas HaPorah. Zois Chukas HaTorah says in the Nesivos Shalom, teaches us Zois Chukas HaTorah, the reading of the Torah. When you're not going to have a Parah Aduma, it's going to be Zois Chukas HaTorah, the same choik, the same being Matayr Tameim. The part of reading the Torah, the Parsha of Parah Aduma, that choik of Parah Aduma extends also to the Torah, but not just to the Torah, to the reading of the Torah. When we read the Parsha this week, it has the power, it has the potential and the capability of being Matayr us. The reading that we do this Shabbos, it has tremendous koyach to be Matayr us. And really, what an awesome opportunity it is. We don't have the Parah Aduma, but here we go. We have an Eitzah. We have an Eitzah to have in mind this Shabbos, a very, very special thing that we can accomplish. So the question is, of course, always, how do we go about it? Is it just listening to the words of the Parsha? Or can we do a little bit more? Can we dig a little bit deeper? How do we go about taking advantage of this opportunity? So Chazal teach us, famous Maimer Chazal, Ein divrei Torah miskaimin el b'mi shememis atzmoi olel. And out of this Maimer Chazal, where the Chazal are telling us that if you want a kiyum of Torah, you want Torah to stay with you, not just the cerebral knowledge of Torah. You want Torah to be part of you. You want Torah to stay with you. It's el b'mi shememis atzmei olel. The Pashut Pshat, what they all say, Mesiras Nefesh for Torah. Sometimes when it's not so easy, and you have to push through that Seder in the morning, you have to push through that night Seder, you have to push through opening up whatever you're going to do, being Mabasedra, learning Mishnah Yonis, whatever your thing is, a little Mesiras Nefesh, a lot of Mesiras Nefesh, whatever it is, a person has that schus when you are Meimis Atzmei Olel, when you have Mesiras Nefesh for Torah, it takes on an entire new life that makes you part of the Torah and the Torah part of you. And the Nesivos Shalom extends that by saying that when we say Elo b'mi shemeimis atzmei oleh, it also means that you're totally mevatel yourself to Hashem. You're not feeling that there's, in Yiddish it's called, you have a zich, that you have a you, where a person realizes that everything is about Hashem. There's no self. Divrei Torah is miskayim, and a person that understands and appreciates that every breath of your life, everything that you, quote, have the capability to do is not because you can do it, it's because HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives you every bit of capability for anything in your life that you're going to do. And what you have to understand also is that when you read the words of the Torah, we need to know that behind every letter in the Torah, it is filled with the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's not just letters, it's not just words, it's not just psukim. Every letter of the Torah is filled with the light of Hashem. And we are mevatel ourselves to that idea that everything we do is guided by and lit up by the Torah. And when a person learns Torah with that idea and those ideals and with that thought, where we're mevatel ourselves just like the Efer Parah. We're mevatel ourselves just like the ashes of the Parah Aduma, where we're almost, quote, thinking that we're not worth anything, everything is about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That is what's matayr us. So when we read the Parsha of Parah Aduma, yes, it's wonderful. It's wonderful to say the words, it's wonderful to learn the words, but if you have this idea in your mind that you yourself, you're making yourself into the Efer Parah. You're making yourself into something where we mevatel ourselves totally to the light of the Torah and what's behind the words of the Torah. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself stands behind every letter in the Torah. That is matayr us this Shabbos. That is the tahara that we have from the parsha of Parah Aduma even nowadays. So much so that the reading of the Torah is actually mitayr us. Because Tumah says in the Nesivos Shalom, Tumah also means, Tumah comes on a person when we think we're something. Because when we think we're something, we are distancing ourselves from Hashem. The more that we understand that it's all about Hashem, the closer we are to Hashem. And Tumah, in general, the concept of Tumah means that in a way you are distanced from Hashem. And when a person feels that they are something, the Mela, you're telling HaKadosh Baruch Hu that I'm not so close to you. I'm not believing in you so much because I'm thinking that a little bit is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but a little bit is me, the guy who has all the brains and the power and the money and everything else to go about and do something. The answer is no. You mevatel yourselves totally to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So in the times of the Beis HaMikdash, the tahara that every person needed, the tahara from Tumah, and that was actual Tumah, Tumah's mace, the tahara came about through the Sreifas HaPara. We burnt the Parah Aduma, we had Ephah Parah, it was sprinkled, right? We went through the entire procedure. So that was the tahara from the Tumah of Tumah's mace in the times of the Beis HaMikdash. Today, says Nesivos Shalom, we have the same mechanism, but it comes about totally through a ruchniistic thing. It comes about through the koyach haTorah. Zois chukas haTorah. The koyach haTorah reconnects us to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We light the fire of the Torah, and the Mela, the darkness departs from us. When we connect to Hashem, the Mela, the darkness goes away. So this week now, you come to read the parsha of Parah Aduma. Let's keep this in mind. Let us keep in mind that the light of Hashem is behind every word in the Torah. The lessons that Hashem wants us to learn, the connection that Hashem wants us to have is behind every single word that we read in the parsha. Once we read, the more a person internalizes that concept that everything is from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then you mevatel yourself, you become like that Ephah Parah. You become like that physical Ephah Parah, which was mitayr physical Tumah, and today our not physical Ephah Parah, today our spiritual Ephah Parah of a person being mevatel herself, that is mevatel the Tumah as we know it, which means being distant from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the second lamar in the Psukim teaches us that fact. The second lamar teaches us that we can reach out for the tahara of Parah Aduma even today. It's a tremendous concept. It's sometimes in Nesivos Shalom, like sometimes very practical, and sometimes a little Kabbalistic, a little deep, a little up in the air. And this is one of those. But it's definitely kedai for every person to keep this in mind, especially now when we are seeing the Yad Hashem so clearly in front of our eyes in world events and everything. Hashem's making it easier for us to see that it's not about us. It's not so easy. It's not so hard to be mevatel yourself anymore. This now, more than a couple of weeks ago, it's much easier for a person to be mevatel himself and understand that the things that are going on around us, human beings don't have those capabilities. Now let's learn that lesson. Shtaka be a tahara for everybody. The lesson of Zois Chukas HaTorah.